Welcome back. Over the past few days, I have played several rapid games over on Lichess, and I won most of them, and today I just wanted to go through them and see if there were places I could have done better. And in the one I lost, obviously I want to find out why. I have pulled up the list here, the archive over on Lichess, and the one, it says 3 days ago, 2 days ago, 41 hours ago, 17 hours ago. That was last night. Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to do the first one, which I have already pulled up here. I don't like that it starts at the end, but I don't know if you can see the little game review thing here. It says I had 0 inaccuracies, 0 mistakes, and 0 blunders for an average center pawn loss of 9 with a 97% accuracy. But my opponent had 2 blunders. It looks like they were their final 2 moves. And according to the little graph, which I think you can see here, it looks like we stayed relatively even until those last 2 moves. So that makes sense. Let's see here. I did play the Caro-Kann defense. I think I played it fairly intelligently, getting the knights out, the bishop out. I have to take there. That's the whole point of putting the bishop there and then playing e6. I assume that was the best move because the eval bar didn't drop. My opponent castled. Should I have castled here? Oh, I can't castle here. I have to get my dark squared bishop out. Just curious as to what the engine says. It does say to get the well, it's having trouble making up its mind. You see it flipping back and forth. It can't decide between h6, knight to c6, or bishop to d6. Okay, it finally settled on knight to c6, which is what I played. Then, of course, that was my opponent's best move. This was my best move. One of their best moves. Oh, it's again having trouble deciding. Is it h6? Is it queen to c7, or is it castling? They're all about the same evaluation. Okay, well, good. I played one of those moves. I think the idea is here that get behind this bishop, protect the knight, protect the pawn, protect over here, and once I castle, then the rooks will be connected. Okay. Their best move was rook to e1. My best move was to castle. And here my opponent did not play one of their better moves. In fact, this one confused me a little bit. I wasn't sure what that was about, but it doesn't change the eval that much. White still has a very slight advantage, which is common in the Caro-Kann defense. e5 is my best move here. Oh, that was the other reason for playing the queen here, because I already have a knight and a bishop defending the e5 square, and now I have a queen defending the e5 square as well. They are supposed to take, and I'm supposed to take back with the knight, and now they're supposed to play queen to d1, which they did. So my opponent is playing superbly here, and I've had a lot of practice in the Caro-Kann defense. I don't know how much practice my opponent has had with it, but it seems like they were doing what they were supposed to do. Now again, I'm supposed to play h6, or queen to c6. I'm not entirely... What does queen to c6 do? Oh, I guess it protects that pawn. But my third best move is what I played. It looks like it should have counted that as an inaccuracy, at least according to this graph here, or this list of moves, because we do get up to 0.5, 0.6. Well, maybe not inaccurate. We're still within that range. Obviously, my opponent's best move was to take back, and now it says queen to c6 again for me. Again, I understand, but that pawn is already defended. I'm not sure what queen to c6 does. But queen to b6 is my third best move. That's what I played. The idea here, I think, is to kind of keep this bishop from moving forward, but they can move it forward anyway. And I really shouldn't take this pawn, apparently. Because, yeah, it says once they play that, I should still play queen to c6. Okay, well, I didn't understand queen to c6, and I still don't. But my opponent brought the knight out here. I'm supposed to put one of my rooks on the e-file. Or bishop to c5. Okay. I guess the engine determined that since I'm going to keep my queen here, I might as well line my bishop up with it to aim at that pawn. That pawn's undefended. Okay, bishop to c5 makes sense, but the other moves are close. I didn't play any of those. I just took that knight, which wasn't great. The evaluation has climbed just a little bit. Not enough to be an inaccuracy, but it wasn't my best move because it doesn't damage their pawn structure because their queen can take. But knight to e4 was my best move here. Now here's where my opponent began to falter. Both of us have used less than a minute after 17 moves. So maybe my opponent should have spent more time here. They should have played queen to e3, queen to f3, or queen to f4. All of those moves would have been fine, but instead they took the knight. Only one move maintains the advantage that they gave me, and that is to take back with the pawn, and then here they did that. I guess they thought they were lining up for a checkmate, but instead they just hung their bishop. So I had a -8, and my opponent resigned at that point, still with more than 9 minutes left on the clock. So that was just a bad trade there. What was their best move after that bad trade? It says they probably should have played a4 or b4 or b3. Those were their best moves at this point. I think another reason they might have moved their bishop is because their rook is trapped, and they were looking to get the rook into the game, since they just threw away their other rook for my knight here. But yeah, that was definitely bad because it hung a piece. Okay, well that makes sense. Let's go on to the next one. Okay, this one says I played with 90% accuracy and an average setting pawn loss of only 25, but I had 4 mistakes. As you can see from the graph, I gave my opponent an advantage during the middle game, which happens a lot coming out of the opening, but then they gave it back really sharply right here, and I took it the rest of the way. Okay, well, what did I do to give away the advantage? I played e4 here, but my opponent played the Scandinavian, which I often play as black, especially in bullet games, not so much in rapid anymore. But anyway, I had an advantage here on move 13. What was I supposed to play? Supposed to play, oh, Stockfish is jumping around. See, you know, it's a complex position when Stockfish jumps around like that. As you can see, we've already traded queens. We've castled to opposite sides. I'm supposed to play c3. Okay, I guess that keeps either of their knights from going out to b4 or knight to h4, which obviously attacks the bishop, but it says they would drop back and then I wouldn't take it. Then at that point I would shoot my f pawn forward. Okay, or rook f to b1. All of those would have maintained an advantage for me. Okay, well, c3, which is the top move, is the one that makes the most sense to me because it keeps the knight from going there. I went a little past it, just directly attack the knight, which of course allows the knight to go to b4, which is what c3 was meant to prevent, and that's what they played. But it's still just even here, but I had to play rook to a3? Well, Stockfish never jumped around on that one. It was pretty sure from the beginning that I had to play rook to a3. I didn't know that. I just took the knight, and they took back. Now rook f to d1. Oh, because they have 2 pieces pointed at this pawn right here? It's a good thing my opponent didn't see that because they just went in here, which allows me, of course, to just move a rook over. It says I should have moved it to d1. I moved it here. Okay, so my opponent is building a very slight advantage very slowly. They put the knight back. Now, Stockfish still says, please put one of your rooks on d1. But I didn't. I put that in there. Okay. That's a mistake because they can just take here. Either one of their pieces can take on d3, and when I take back, then their other piece will take, so they would have gone up a pawn. I'm not sure how that gives them a -2 advantage, but my opponent didn't see it. They just saw that their bishop was under attack, so they dropped it back. Again, Stockfish wants a rook on d1. It's because, again, they still have 2 pieces pointed there. I didn't realize that, so I brought the knight back down. My opponent finally realized that, and they took the pawn, which threatens my rook, so I take back. They take here, aiming at my other rook, which I put on d1, which is what I'm supposed to do. Okay, well, it kind of forced me to do that. They're supposed to go ahead and take the knight, according to Stockfish, but they didn't. But regardless, I think I played pretty well until about right here, where I gave my opponent an even bigger advantage. I'm supposed to take their rook. I played my second best move, but it was bad enough that it counted that as a mistake. It's because they can take my rook, which I knew that they could, but then I could just take back, right? Okay, now here's where my opponent had a couple of blunders. I see what they did here. They played king to f8, but it looks like they're just trying to castle. That's a sensible move. Their best move, the one that keeps them with the biggest advantage, and this right here is the biggest advantage they had in the whole game. They're supposed to play rook to a8, or king to d7, king to d6. But instead they went back there behind the rook, kind of castling by hand, which they had already castled over here, right? That's what I thought. But that side's broken open, so they went back to the other side. That took away almost all of their advantage, but I didn't take advantage of it, and I wasn't sure what to do. I just gave my king an out here, because I figured I thought they were going to move this rook over. I would have to get my knight out, and then my king would be in trouble. I guess I didn't realize, of course, my knight would still be guarding the spot that it just came from, so my king wouldn't have been in that much trouble. Now my opponent played rook to a8, but it wasn't their best move. It was one of their best moves on the previous turn, but it's not now. I think it's obvious that they're trying to come around behind here. I'm supposed to play to e3. Oh, that makes sense. The pawn would be protecting it on e3. I went a different way where just the rook is protecting it. It says they're still supposed to come here and attack the knight. I think it's because they're attacking the knight, but also getting behind the pawn. Maybe that's what it is. I don't understand because the knight is protected and the knight's protecting the pawn, and not sure. But they played their second best move, which was to come down and check me. My best move by far is to go back up in the little hidey hole that I had just created. And the reason I did that one instead of this one is because they have a light squared bishop. I wanted the diagonal coming in here to be not the color that they have their bishop on. Again, they're supposed to go to a3, which I don't understand. My opponent didn't understand it either. They got behind my f pawn, which seems pretty easy to move. I can just move it forward or put the king on g3 to protect it. Okay, and we're even now. So what was their blunder that supposed to start bringing their king or come up in here, which I don't understand? Those are their 3 moves that maintain equality, but they played there. Only one move. I had only one move and I found it. It was checking. Okay. And now, of course, they only have one legal move. And I found this one too, because now I win their rook. Okay, well, I get that. Okay, that makes sense. I'm pretty happy I found the tactic, because when I checked, they had only one legal move. Then I checked with the knight, which they can just take the knight. Not sure why they didn't. They could have just taken with the pawn. But anyway, I got their rook there. That was my best move, right? Oh, they played their best move here. Sorry, I thought their best move would have been to take with the pawn, but Stockfish says king to d6 is fine. And then I take the rook, and then they're supposed to take the knight with the pawn, but they took it with the king. Okay, that was their final mistake, and after that I just had to clean up. I think I understand all of that, except that when it kept telling them to move their rook to a3, but I'm not here to analyze my opponent's mistakes, just my own. Let's go to the third game. Now, this one I lost because I blundered on the final move. I think I remember what it was. I think I just hung a piece is what happened here. I had an advantage for most of the second half of the game, and you can see there's a huge jump there. I didn't have any mistakes, but I had 2 blunders. Where was the first one? Oh, my first blunder was around here on move 24. I'm supposed to play queen to g6, or knight to f6, or knight to e5. But I played queen to c6, and my opponent should have captured. But one thing I've noticed about a lot of opponents, not all, a lot of opponents at my level are afraid to trade queens. Afraid is the wrong term. They're hesitant about trading their queens. They're uncomfortable trading their queens. Those are probably more accurate. I don't think there's any fear involved. It's just that they think they'll have a better chance if they keep their queen on the board. But in a lot of the cases, it is their best move to trade queens. And here it's by far their best move to trade queens. Or if they don't want to, they could just block that by putting the knight on c3. The problem is that the knight is undefended here. This is a fork. I'm saying if you don't trade queens, I'm going to take your knight. Well, they played queen to d2, which allows me to take their knight. And so I have a huge lead here. I'm a full piece ahead, being down 1 pawn. Okay, see, I get all that. So we did okay after that. I maintained a pretty steady advantage as we jockeyed around, moving our pieces into position. I wasn't sure how to break in. It looked like they had a pretty solid defense. Their bishop's defending the pawn, which is defending the pawn, and the queen's defending there, and the queen's defending the rook, and the pawn's defending the pawn, and the king's guarding those 2 pawns. So how am I supposed to break in here, even with an extra piece? I just wasn't sure. I was just hoping to either win on time or my opponent would make a mistake at some point, or try to trade off pieces, but I was having trouble finding a way to force a trade. We're not going to trade the bishops, because they'll never see each other. They're on opposite colors. So I could trade a knight for a bishop, or trade off the rooks. Something like that was what I was hoping for. But instead, we just kept moving around, being pretty careful. It looks like we're maintaining around a -4, -3.5 for a lot of this section. And right near the end here, I'm up -5, -6. Even if they take with the pawn, which of course they did. As I said, I was trying to trade off a piece. I did. That was the bishop for the knight, because there was a fork. Did I mention that? I forked the rook and the bishop. Of course, they got the rook out of the way, and then I was able to do this trade, which leaves me up a full bishop. I thought that would be to my advantage. Now here it was me that played an inaccuracy. What I should have played was queen to e2. Okay, threatening the rook. No, now it says bishop to c2. Oh, which also threatens the rook. If I had played bishop to c2, they would have moved the rook over. If I had played queen to e2, they would have come down here. Okay, queen to d6, which would have defended their rook from my end. Okay, that all makes sense. But instead, I went over here. I'm not sure why. It gives up this pawn, which my opponent took. Okay, so now I'm only up 1 point of material, but that's because I'm down 2 pawns and up the bishop. I still have a lead. I just need to play queen to g6. Queen to c2, or king to h7. But instead, I did that. And I did not see that the queen was pointing at that diagonal. Gotta watch out for the diagonals. But yeah, so I was winning in this game, but I was thinking I was probably going to lose on time. My opponent's a full minute ahead of me. I'm down to 2 minutes after 40-something moves. I maybe should have spent a few more seconds here. I wonder, how bad would this have been? How bad would it have been to play rook to a8? Because I think I could have seen that. My queen's defending it. If I had played that instead. Okay, I still would have had a lead. See, the moves that it suggested, I'm not sure I would find. The queen to g6 or the queen to c2, but this I understand. It would send their queen running back here, and then would it be bad for me to take it? No. Okay, I would have still had a lead. If I had taken, they would have taken back. Okay, that's probably what I should have played then, because I understand this position and I'm up a piece. So every piece we trade off is good for me. Right now my rook is aimed at that pawn. Now that they took back the queen, it says I'm not actually supposed to take that pawn. I'm supposed to play here to aim at that pawn. Rook to a4. They would play rook to d6. Oh, aiming at my pawn. Okay. Well, then why wouldn't I go ahead and take theirs and try to get back around? What would they do if I took this? They would still come down here aiming at my pawn, which I would protect. I wouldn't go over here, it says. Okay, so I would protect my pawn. And if they came forward, I would take it, right? Yeah, I can't decide if that's best or if checking me's best. If they check me, I'm just going to go over here. If they move their pawn forward, I'm going to take it. And I'm going to be okay, because all their other pawns are over here, and two of them are stacked up. Yeah, I should have been able to win this game. I guess I got frazzled because I was low on time, and I think I could have seen this move, even though it's not one of the suggested ones. All right, let's look at the most recent one that I played last night. I'm pretty happy with this one. Again, only 2 inaccuracies, 19% average center-pawn loss, 94% accuracy overall. Okay, so I checkmated in 16 moves. Okay, well, this one's worth going through. Where did my opponent mess up, and how did they do it? I played the Caro-Kann defense, which usually, almost always, does not result in checkmate in 16 moves. I've played it hundreds of times. Almost never. I have been checkmated by my opponent knowing a couple of tricks or traps against the Caro-Kann. But I don't think I've ever checkmated somebody in less than 20 moves with the Caro-Kann defense. But that's what happened here. My opponent went for the exchange variation. It is one of their better moves to put the bishop on d3. I think that's to prevent my bishop from going here. In that case, I'm supposed to get out one of my knights and wait for them. If I wait for them to develop their knight to f3, then I can put my light-squared bishop on here, pinning it to their queen, and then trade off for it later. So I wait with my light-squared bishop. I have learned that. I played this, and also this pawn's undefended because of where they put their bishop. So they're supposed to defend it with c3, which they did. I'm supposed to get my other knight out now. Okay, I did not play my best move here. They're supposed to take it, but they didn't. I think maybe they were preparing to castle, and they didn't want to put the knight here for some reason. Okay, good. I was wondering about this. I was wondering whether I should have taken or pushed, and I pushed. Not only does this give me more space, which in general helps to make the evaluation go higher for whoever has the most space, but it also comes with a tempo. It forces the bishop back. Stockfish says they should have come forward. It's a little bit better, but it's not that bad to go back. Oh, and now I should just keep going. Wow. It says f5 is my best move. I played my second best move, which is to get that bishop out. My opponent castled. So we're still doing pretty good. It's pretty close to zeros here. Now, there's no knight on f3 to pin here, but I can still pin the knight. So I thought moving to bishop to g4 wouldn't be that bad. It says it is my best move. I also thought they wouldn't attack with the pawn because I already have a pawn that far advanced that could just take it. So I'm glad to see that that was my best move. I'm surprised, but it was. They're supposed to start chipping away at my center right here, but their third best move, if Stockfish will ever make up its mind, their third best move is to attack that. Oh, I'm supposed to play queen to h4. Interesting. But wouldn't they just take? No, because my bishop. Oh, okay, queen to h4. Well, instead, right here, I remembered a video from right after I started getting back into chess and before I started doing any videos on this channel. I remember seeing somebody do a video called the fishing pole trap or something like that. But in those cases, I think the knight was out here and they attack with this pawn and you push a pawn forward to defend it. It only works in a couple of situations. It works if your rook is still back here in the corner and if your queen can access the diagonal and if their king is castled and if they don't have any other piece attacking right there. I think those are the situations that need to be in place. But again, this might not be the exact thing that the fishing pole trap was. I don't remember. During the game, it popped into my head. I said, wait, can I do the fishing pole trap here? And I played h5. Stockfish says it's my third best move. It counted this as inaccurate, one of my 2 inaccuracies. They're definitely not supposed to take. And that's the thing with the fishing pole trap. And the thing with chess, you don't have to take. And here, taking is bad. They're supposed to play knight to d2, or queen to e1 is fine, or knight to a3. Not sure about that, but it says that's okay. But they took. Well, that means you just lost to the fishing pole trap. Surprisingly, bishop to h2 is actually best here. Very interesting. Well, I went with the second best move, which I thought I remembered from the fishing pole trap, which is to take with the pawn to give the rook the access to the entire diagonal. They only have a couple of ways out of here. Rook to e1, knight to g3. Well, they found knight to g3. So pretty impressed by that. I am still supposed to put the queen on h4, which I did. That's lining up down here. And now they need to play rook to e1. The only way out of mate. They played rook to e1, so they're out of mate. Best move is f5, because right now if I check here, their king gets away, and I can't check in the corner because of their knight. So I guess f5 is an attempt to dislodge the knight, but they have a bishop guarding that square. I don't know if that would work. Or knight g to e7. Really? I just went ahead and checked. I wasn't sure what else to do. Of course, they only have one legal move at this point. Okay, and this next one was my best move. Well, I moved 13 here, and I figured let's just mess this all up, right? Their best move is to take back with the f-pawn, but now I can just take the f-pawn. My opponent needs to play queen to d2 here, or put their king back over there to guard that square. Now, if they put their king back over, I could check again, but then they can come back. But I can't bring my rook down. But when they do that to attack my queen, well, I can bring the rook down. I have a forced mate in 2 at this point, because their king's going to only have one way out because of where my queen is. So once I check here, they can only go to d2, and that's mate, because my pawn cuts that square off. So mate in 16 moves with the Caro-Kann defense. You don't see that every day. I certainly don't. As I said, I don't have any memory of ever winning that quickly with the Caro-Kann defense. Certainly not in a rapid game. But as you see, I barely used over a minute here. My opponent used 2.5 minutes, but did not use it that wisely. And of course, going back, in case you are curious and you face the Caro-Kann defense, if your opponent plays the fishing pole trap or some variation of it like this, you don't want to take. For those of you that aren't familiar with this, I think that this works only if there's a rook behind that pawn, only if the queen can access this diagonal, and only if their king is castled. Then they definitely shouldn't take here. That's a bad move, and we would have been even had they just left it there. So it is kind of hope chess to play the fishing pole trap, but I wasn't sure what else to do. I didn't know. Should I have brought my bishop back? Let's see, when they played that, no, okay. When they played that, I should have put the queen out there or dropped the bishop back to h5. Okay, well, the queen out there was the only move that maintained an advantage. This does not maintain an advantage unless the opponent takes, which they did. So if you see that situation, you notice those 3 things. You have a rook on that file. They've attacked with the h-pawn, your piece that you can protect with your h-pawn. Their king is castled, and your queen's on that diagonal. If they take it, you'll do okay. All right, I don't see it very often, but it worked. I'm doing okay. And I think I understood the mistakes and blunders that I made here, so I'm going to keep trying to improve. Hopefully you're doing well also. Thank you for spending your time here. I know you have lots of other ways to spend it. I'll see you next time.